Hi Jayant, welcome to Your Next Move.
Hey Shrey, thanks so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Analytics and big data isn't the future. It's not even the present. It's like more than a decade old now, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Analytics has replaced feelings with data, it has democratized opinion in the boardroom. Does that put unnecessary pressure on data scientists and analysts when business wants to use big data, even when there is no need of it?
Let's break down this question. I think it's a great question to start off this conversation. One of all, I think you're right in the fact that analytics is not something new. And I still remember during my internship days at GFK, our CEO of the GFK India, Billy Chatterjee, he showed us some of the pictures of the first planning commission in India, in which Professor Mahana Lobis was a member. He later on went on to found the Indian Statistical Institute in Kolkata, and he showed us pictures of him standing over desks, like large desks with spreadsheets literally made out of paper and statisticians
Okay.
running regressions to make India's
Right.
first five-year plans. It was an economic model using econometrics and analytics and data. It's just that we just hadn't started using computers to do it. So, and
Right.
that's what links it to being like democratized. Right now, everybody, it's your fingertips to use that asset that you have. So it is old. It's old as the mountains have ever existed. Chinese abacus, I
Right.
noticed carefully, was the first analytical tool, right, to aid
Right. Right. Right.
in making sense of numbers and data. Uh,
Yeah, in that sense, it's been there forever.
yeah, it's been there forever. It's just that now it's like everybody has a cell phone and it has more capability running numbers than an abacus.
Right.
Can use data and track stuff.
Right.
Examples are like you use Google Play, and Google Pay will tell you what you spent this month on, whether it's been on restaurants, entertainment, food, groceries, etc.
Right.
And that's good. Like people like consuming that sort of information.
Right.
So that's there. What other thing I think what computers has done is it started able to track our behavior more closely. So it's not. I don't think it's replacing feelings or any other human component with data. What it's doing is breaking down our behavior and actions into small, measurable information points, right? Data points, to be exact.
Right.
And that's good. Now, here's where the challenge comes in. I think what this second step did was it allowed organizations to store and read more and more data about themselves as an organization, about their processes, more importantly, about their customers and consumers and clients who they're servicing. And once they had all of that, it's put kind of a, you are right, a pressure on organizations to see how much can we leverage it. And the case study behind is that the organizations that have actually leveraged data have performed and outperformed those who have not.
For
So
sure.
it's in there of figuring out, do I have an edge or a leverage? I think data has it. It's just like in what context and in what quantity. I don't think it's a one size fits all. And the way you look at it, maybe you're looking at data in the wrong place. If you're a B2C company and you have a large customer base, maybe consumer data makes a lot of information for you. Like it makes sense for you to tap those data points, convert it to information, and look at insights. But if let's say you're a B2B organization, maybe data science can help you leverage in manufacturing things better, tracking compliance better, tracking customer experience better, but not exactly there is too much insights to know who your customers are because the base is maybe so small. And that's been my previous experience in working for some companies like that, where I felt like, hey, your local sales rep actually knows every single person for the last 15 years. You don't
Right.
need a data model to understand your consumers. So
Right.
I think the pressure is there. I think it's just that sometimes folks are looking in the wrong place to look. Um, but once you tap into that, I think there is no denying the fact that the companies who are leveraging data are currently outperforming and in future will remain to continue to have that edge over companies which are not leveraging data.
You went into data science straight after your marketing degree. Was it a plan or did it happen accidentally before you felt comfortable in it? How did it go for you?
So that's an interesting question, and I won't lie. Like I think it was a gradual move. It wasn't also something sudden that I would attribute to fate and destiny. and also not the other extreme of saying, oh, it was very hardcore planned of doing it. I
Right.
it was very gradual. I would shy away from the fact that I did apply to some of the shiny roles. And you and I are from the same grad school, so we know that some of the big names, especially on the CPG side, come on campus and we're like, oh,
Right.
apply to this company. And I did fare well in some of those processes. And I think it was a good discovery to realize that in a lot of places, my strengths that were taking me to a certain level and ultimately not matching was matching with certain different kind of organizations.
Right.
And it just so happened that I got the chance to join a consulting company focused on data, headquartered in Bay Area, and I was like, okay, they have nice clientele. I love what I like doing or what they're offering me to do. So it was an amalgamation of what I'm good at plus what I was comfortable doing. And this is how I would tell most folks when they are planning a career. And this is something I
Right.
learned actually later in after getting a job. Is I like to say that let's plan only for the next 4 years. I think planning beyond that in your career is a it's a disadvantage to yourself. Let's not do that.
Okay.
You never know after 4 years
That's interesting.
what
Yeah.
open. So just look
Right.
at the crux of the matter is like just look at the base level what you're doing. Is that something that you're comfortable? I am comfortable analyzing, putting a structure around things, helping solve a problem, decoding a problem. I'm good at it. With data, without data, love that exercise. Because in any job, you will be spending more than 50% of the time doing a lot of for lack of a better word, grunt work. Doing a lot of stuff that's not jazzy, that's not cool, but it's
Right.
required. It's going to be in every single job. So at the end of the day, are you part what you're doing, whatever way the mechanism? If you look, and I love doing that. So when I looked at this job, like great. Now the way I do it is they gave me data, and I was comfortable. I like doing. I had an engineering background, so numbers came in easy. Equation
Right.
but at a later stage, yes, talking, solving about the problem also was helpful. But yeah, that's been my journey, and since then I've always looked at it in 4 years, and I always looked at like, okay, at the heart of it, what does that job mean, right? Um, some people may not like it. Some people like, I love coding. It's I would love to sit on a desk and just code it and make something really efficacious and efficient and really beautiful set of codes. There are jobs out there that will help you achieve that. But then again,
Right. Yeah.
what you're using, what platforms you're using, how you're planning to grow in that career. 4 years is the max one should go.
Right. Yeah, and now I've noticed that analytics over the years now needs more and more and more people, and it needs so many more people in the future. But when someone goes to apply to an analytics role, there is always this years of experience wall. How can someone breach it?
Yeah, I'll start with a funny thing. I recently saw a job posting on LinkedIn, right? And it said, we need people with 15 years of experience in Python coding. And I was like, uh, get one. I remember 15 years ago who were coding in Python for bioinformation, like bioinformatics field. They were running in on DNA sequences. So until
Right.
unless you're literally looking to hire someone from cross category and cross industry and go into like biotechnology and hire someone from that field to bring into you're not going to find
Yeah.
someone. So I think it's also a little, people who are hiring also tend to not know the field and the evolution of different things. They just tend to write straight umbrella and blanket statements like, let's do that. First of all, don't feel that there is a need. If it says 10 years of experience and you have 7 or 6, feel free to apply. That's what I've seen. And it's again, all of this is with an asterisk mark of saying it's my personal opinion.
You're right.
But one, don't feel to like feel shy away. Like, okay, it's asking for 10 years. I have 5. Do it. Maybe it's asking. It's over promising or like raising the threshold in a certain way. Don't hesitate. Go in and see it, because sometimes when the hiring manager talks to you, they have much better sense of what a true talent set they're looking for. The other thing is, yes, the industry needs more and more people, um, um, but at the same time, they also want an exact uniform fit. Being on the hiring side, I have often felt that a lot of us have come to the realization that those unicorns don't exist out there, right? You will need to make a team that complements each other and has different skill set, and you'll have to. I don't want to use the word compromise, but be more a little more creative and thinking out of the box when hiring folks. The most easiest way I've seen, the most obvious way I've seen most people approach this issue is let me go back to school. Let me get a 2 year degree or a 1 year executive degree in certain way from certain institutions, or sometimes do a 6 month well established, well recognized course um, that these jobs are demanding. So let me do that. Um,
Yeah, that is one great way. In fact, even when I moved from marketing to analytics, I did the same thing. Like I did a course for 6 months, learned SAS, SQL, and all that stuff, advanced Excel, and came back and said, okay, I think I'm ready for it.
Okay, so exactly, and I think one caveat a lot of people forget to mention in that is to that for that to happen, you need to have a very high level of self awareness of what you are, and you had a specific talent, right? And you knew that what a missing piece of the puzzle is, and you clearly said, I need SAS, I need SQL, I needed that
Right.
skills, I needed some to learn that, and hence I did a 6 month course, and it fit brilliantly with the rest of your profile. And then you went on the market and said, "Hey, look at me now! Now the profile is whole. Hire me." And you also had
Yes.
a target in mind, right? These are the three jobs I'm going after, and I believe that once you're going for such courses, my the advice I would give to my friends and cousins or anyone seeking from it is make sure that you're not going in blinded without any sight of an opportunity. So what you really need to make sure is that once you are going after that degree or course, have the next job clear in sight. Because if you are thinking that I'll do it and then explore, it's going to leave a bad taste. And I'm speaking from what I've seen around me. A lot of folks don't do it. It's going to be a heavy investment. And another less explored opportunity, sometimes a little difficult, and feel free to add on here is what I've seen people do, and I personally believe that's the right way to do it. Is a more cost efficient way. Look for opportunities within your company and pitch yourself and say, hey, I would like to try that. It's a lateral move, but most organizations are happy doing that because one, you're good cultural fit, you're already in the organization, so there's no cost to hire. You understand the business as well. So if they take you from one department and move you to another, and you want to learn
Right.
something, let's say you are on the consulting side, client facing side, and you wanted to go in,
Right.
hey, I want to run models. Okay, can I be part of that
Right.
department? Organizations,
Exactly.
I'm speaking from experience, we are more than happy to bring someone from within the organization who understands the business and do it. So it's a lateral move.
Yeah.
Give you maybe looking for a salary hike and all that pieces of the puzzle. It's not going to give you that, but it's going to get you in that field and get you that experience to start talking about it and gain that experience you're looking for. Um,
Right.
and I think that's one way. Most riskier way I can say in one sentence is some people have done that, who have made drastic industry moves. Is they went in an intern at companies. I've seen people with 8 years of experience go an intern, and within a couple of years they are back to where they had started. And that was a much cost efficient way of actually leaving a salaried job for 2 years and going and doing a degree. So
Y-
I felt
Yeah, I think that brings to my next question also. I think we're like in the same space right now. Like if there's a mid-level manager with 10 years of experience under the belt, right? They want to get into analytics, but they don't want to compromise on their salary or grade. You know, this is one way that they could do it, right? Like how easy or tough is it to do so?
I think it's very easy, and especially as you go up the ladder, these moves actually are are well adjusted, most welcomed by the organization, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
I don't want to use a hierarchical language here, but let's say if you are in a more individual contributing role, which is very specified in its delivery, um, those jobs are a little hard because it's difficult to sell to a manager and say, hey, I'm going to give you this person who comes from, let's say, graphic designing or was running our production of our campaigns online for Amazon, right? They were making ads and stuff, and now this person wants to run models. It's difficult for the manager to say, okay, this is going to be a lot. It's going to be a very steep learning,
Learning curve.
and I have to take that burden of in my team. Versus someone who's a little higher in the rung, where the Venn diagrams of the kind of profile is needed starts to overlap a lot, right?
Right. The skill sets of being a manager and
Manager,
um,
leadership
being a
capabilities,
people leader, they kind of
good
match.
time, making sure you have a high functioning team. Those things start to really come into play. So I will see that's very difficult. A lot of people think of it as, oh, I can't do that. Again, within the company is the most easiest thing you can do, because that's welcomed by organizations. Um, and those who don't welcome it, my advice is you are not set in the right manner. You should allow people to move. It lets people have longer tenures with your company. You have shorter learning periods, more steeper learning curves, and it's high productivity. It's a very efficient way of doing it. At the same time, just remember this also: if you're pitching outside an organization, look for what that role needs. It can't be an abrupt jump and you ask the other person to trust you. Trust within the organization happens because they know you. Nobody can trust you without knowing you first, right? So and that's why I say it ultimately it's about in the company it's easy for someone to trust you. Outside an organization, if you don't want to take a hit on salary, you don't want to take a hit on your designation, and you want to make a move, it all boils down to trust. How would that other organization trust you? A more elegant way of doing it is look for what profiles they are needing, what exactly skill set are required there, and maybe you pitch those skill sets to them and say, "Hey, I'm a 70% to an 80% fit." And going back to my few points as well, most managers and team leaders have learned to accept that there's no unicorn out there, and a 70 to 80% fit is a great thing to have on team.
Okay, coming back to the nature of the work, there is a constant complaint from the business folks, especially at legacy companies, that analytics isn't delivering the business impact it should. On the other hand, analysts complain of being relegated to a reporting role with a fancy title. What is your take on this? How do you deal with it in your present role?
Yeah, so I think your first question somehow I touched upon in my earlier comments about most. I'm going to make a very bold statement. Most business leaders, most, have absolutely no idea of what they're looking for in data. The one thing those leaders understand is they can see the horizon before everyone else, and they have understood that fact that organizations leveraging data have an edge over those who don't. So that's the pressure on them, but they are not the data insights or data analytics people. They don't understand the inner mechanisms of what's working and how they can business can leverage. So they're constantly looking for things, but they would rather hire someone from outside, come into the business, and then go start looking, right? So I think that's an evolution over a period of time. Maybe when the folks who are currently in data analytics and understand data better, and as you said, it's getting democratized. So I expect a marketing person or supply chain person or an operations person, even a salesperson, to be quick in understanding data, consuming data, understanding models a little better. Maybe once they start going up the ladder, this problem is automatically going to solve itself.
Right.
To the second point of relegating to reporting roles, here's a quick fact: the fastest growing portion of analytics business is visualization. It's the most valued tools in the field of analytics today, in which it's either high paying jobs, most often available jobs, and the tools that you cost you a lot in subscription are Tableau, Power BI, Domo, ClickView, to mention a few. Like
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
I'm going to look at it. So to
Right.
relegate it to a reporting role, I think is wrong. Reporting is currently the most highest impact making portion of analytics. And while at the end of the day, the consumption is in a very small manner of saying, oh, it's a dashboard. Ask anybody who's made a dashboard. Ask anybody who's consumed data that is used to make a dashboard. The amount of
Absolutely.
effort it takes, that
It's just fancier to make models. Obviously, like when you're into hardcore data science and numbers, it looks so fancy, and you want to do it as an analyst or as a scientist. But I'm understanding what you're trying to say, right? Like when it comes to business impact, reporting is there up there.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's like an iceberg, right? Not most people can see what's underneath, but they see a small portion at the top, but it requires a lot of hard work to get there. Now, has it achieved? I think there's a lot of potential yet to go. It's not on decline there, right? There's a lot of potential. So there's I don't know if you follow it. There's a blog called Marketunist. If I'm not wrong, the name of the gentleman who's running is Tim Fishburne. He's an ex-Harvard guy, was in marketing, was a CMO, and he loved doodling. So he started making cartoons. And he had a very brilliant way of looking at dashboards, and he had a funny way of showing it. Maybe if you can pull that up, it's about someone looking at dashboard and going, "That's a chart nobody understands. That's a redundant chart. A metric that may no longer make sense." That's the titles he
Oh,
gave a dashboard. So part that's missing is storytelling. You're doing great work with data, but the thing that you're pushing out sometimes goes on a shelf. Most business leaders wouldn't stop looking at it, and that goes into that whole circle of, I need to find something. You can't give them what they're looking for, so they start asking you for reports. They start because they want to consume data, right? And you start publishing reports. What's happened is in a lot of organizations, the data folks have let the reins in the hands of the leaders. I think it has to be a collaborative process where you have to push things and say, boss, you're asking me to look at X, Y, and Z. I believe you should be looking at A, B, and C. And here's why. And that's where it's going to change the whole relationship. The leaders are not going to put pressure on you like I need to find something. They'll be more like, tell me more. What can I do it? And that's when that you can no, maybe they trust you so much, they don't want to be educated on how you're doing it. But if you can give them and reverse this relationship is where this will really bring value to any organization. And I'm grateful, like in my current role, I'm very happy. My manager, she's one. She's got an IQ that can boil an ocean, right? And then she understands number very well. But she allows me a free reign of saying, "You tell me what I should be looking at," versus me telling you. So it's a healthy relationship of a little bit from that party, a little bit from me, and I think that's when a function like data analytics can grow in an organization.
okay. So when you put yourself in the shoes of a manager, right, and you look for a data analyst or a data scientist for your team, how do you go about it? What are the steps? Like, is there a structure to it? How do you hire?
Okay, so there are two parts to it. To be clear, you are asking specifically about hiring or solving a problem.
I think we can talk about hiring, and then like once the person is in the team, you know,
Yeah. So
building the culture and solving problems together.
and again, this is my personal model of looking at any data team that's there. Um, is I like to put talent pools in three buckets. I think the first pool that most obvious has existed in most organizations is the insights department, right? Because there was less availability of data, they relied a lot on surveys, right? Market research, which we call, and not people like. But if you look closely, they did segmentations, they did regressions, clustering. Now that we have two large sets of data, those statistical models have suddenly morphed into random forests, icicle plots and things like that, which are much more, which can work on a bigger set of data. But they're ultimately all about clustering, segmenting, and answering the same business questions. So that department. One good thing about that talent pool is they have a very good understanding of how to answer business questions. What question am I looking for? So market research wouldn't start at how can I read data better, but they'll rather start at, is this ad copy good for the market? What target segment should we be going after? What's the best pricing that I can offer? They're really good, and this availability of a lot of talent in the market with more than a decade of experience, because this industry has existed for at least half a century, right? So that's one pool of set I look for. I like, okay, we need a profile that clearly is able to translate business questions into research or data points, and they're very good at that.
Right.
The second portion is someone who's very good at technically understanding data. Now, this could be a data administrator, or a data analyst, a data scientist, depending on the level of data one organization has. But someone who's very good at massaging data, pulling things out. So, in one word, a coder, someone who can program better, someone who loves doing that and going into data and wrangling it out for you. right? And that's the
Right.
second set of tool I look for. And third are visualizers.
The ones who torture the data till the
Enough.
time it does not reveal anything, right?
That's one way of saying it. Torture a data enough and tell you whatever you want to want it to say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe not to that much, but just sometimes an organization is just struggling of like how do I read data in a certain format, right? Sometimes your tools don't allow you to run simple problems. You'll notice just pivoting here is let's say you have a platform in a company that's measuring price points, like at what price are you selling the current product, but it doesn't maintain a time series of how the price per product has gone up and down over a period of time. It only stores at the point in time. So a simple target of saying how has this product evolved in price and discounts over last 3 years takes almost 2 weeks for the organization to answer that question. You're making certain assumptions sometimes because there is no repository of going in. Just pulling that data set from different places. Simple answer, it's not even regression, just getting that requires a lot of coding because there are
Right.
different that you need someone who understands systems and tables and data to pull that stuff out. So that's the third is visualizer, and that's another point. Don't think reporting is delegating. It's an important point, and it's a specific talent set out there of people who understand these tools and platforms who can visualize things for you because that automates, that removes redundancies, that helps you a quick analysis of things that are going on. And I believe all these three talent pools come together to help build a team, and that's how I look at building teams and the three profiles I look at people. That doesn't mean that they'll be like siloed into what these three profiles are. There's a huge overlap and Venn diagrams, and that's I think that makes the team really gel well. And
Right. Yeah, a good team, I believe, is like one real living entity.
exactly, so uh,
It's not just silos and this is my work, this is your work. It's more like
it's
culture, work.
and we'll always help each other out. And I said, there's like these roles may go overlap. The only reason I do that is because it allows me to set accountability. Maybe not
Right.
responsibility, but two or three, all three of these roles will be working together towards a certain project or initiative. But at the end of the day, what's this allowing me to do is it's allowing me to set accountability. Like, okay, at the end of the day, if something goes wrong on this, I need to have a system as of management as well of saying, okay, you are
Right.
responsible for meeting this deadline or
Right.
threshold. So there's someone in the driving seat, and it also like I started a negative way. I shouldn't say that. It also gives me like at the end of the day, if we stand and applaud for someone for one initiative, that who's that leader who did that, right? So it also allows giving credits very easily, like who did what. And if you see a lot of
That's
business,
important.
all three are involved, but they are always leaning towards one side of these three. Uh,
Right. Right. Okay, analytics today, especially reporting, suffers from this human oversight problem. Right? While organizations are quick to reprimand individuals, analysts for not looking at the data, leading to errors, the ever expanding quantity of data simply makes it impossible for an analyst to do so. Imagine, and if there are a hundred or 1,000 data points and you miss one out and that goes out to a senior management, uh, you're done for, right? What is your take on this? How can we automate more, or is human uh, look, you know, overlooking of the data always necessary?
I think initially, at least for the next few years, I believe a human oversight would be required because most organizations are setting up the processes of how they're consuming data. So we're still building out the models. We're still setting things up, right? So there's on the way we are automating some processes, but there's some of them may be in testing phase. So you will require some human involvement, right? Or as a Google conference like recently quoted, human-driven AI. AI is a long way. I'm saying even in this general process, it has to be human driven right now. So those opening to errors will be there. Even with automation, it does happen, right? It happens in a lot of cases. Um, so it's always there, but I see this issue into two parts. One is a more cultural, organizational role in it, on how they're handling it, and There are some organizations who do it better than the others, who understand that if you find a thing, it's a learning opportunity and a challenge rather than fault finding mission. So I don't want to get into a more of a professorial here and say, oh, thou shall not mode. But I think organizations need to understand that they need to start. The more they consume data, issues
Hmm.
will come up, people will make mistakes, and that's obvious. It's part of the learning mechanism. What processes are you putting in place that it doesn't happen? I think we can take a learning from the IT field, which still sometimes does some errors, but I think they have learned over a period of time, and also set expectations within the industry of the time they take to deliver something. This is often an issue between a CIO versus a CTO is timelines. CIOs are much faster. They want to go along with the commercial leaders, with what the business is asking, versus a CTO who's like, oh, this takes time. It requires testing. It requires a beta phase, and we need to do that. I think the organization, like analytics as an industry, can take some learnings from there in setting the right expectations when it comes to time. But at the same time, I think it's more of a cultural question. What I think we can do as on a personal level is that I learned during my analyst days was let's help each other out within our own narrative. We know this is going to happen. So the best way to make sure that that you're not the only one left out is to help each other in your own pods, in your own smaller teams, right? So when I was an analyst, we were a pod with a team leader of like four analysts. So what we would do was, if it's my project and it's going out on, let's say, on this Thursday being sent out, I would close it by Tuesday or Wednesday. And then I have already told a block time with one of my colleagues to say that you are going to quality check my entire deliverable and ask me questions on it, and that person would spend about 4 to 5 hours going through the entire sheet, looking at numbers. So there's another set of pair of eyes, looking at the same output. So they would catch things which I would, in 2 or 3 rounds of quality checking, would have missed, and they would ask me questions, made me think again, and that would allow the deliverable to be at least have one round of clarity before it went out. It was also a good learning experience for both parties. And we would flip the
Right.
roles in the next project when my colleague was about to deliver, and I would do the quality for
So
them.
proper maker checker process, maker checker process
Yeah,
works.
exactly. Call, like, that's a nice name to give it, right? So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we used to use that in city. So
yeah, that's a great, and I think that's at a human level, it's good for growth. So
yeah.
don't just wanted to point that out, that yes, the onus lies on the organization, but as a person who is developing your career, don't wait for the organization. Let's start the change here in any small manner that you can do.
Okay, before leaving you, I want to ask you one question about your own personal journey in the corporate field. Can you tell us about one person you worked with or a group of people who have left a big impact in your life?
I have been very lucky, and as I said earlier, don't want to use the word luck, but I've been lucky in one respect. I've always had great managers. I've always had great team leads. I just landed up with them. I never had an issue like, oh, I have to change my team, or and this is not working. Never.
That's great. Yeah.
And on both sides of the world, right? When I was back in India and working with consulting, or being on the like corporate side, have had the fortunate, occurrence of always having great managers. Um, so it's very difficult to pull out a few names, but for the sake of this question, Shrey, what I'm going to do is I'll just take two names. And with whom I've had. So one person I really had, and I think you also know him, Mr. Titirpal.
Oh
Uh,
yes, of course. Yes.
with him, I worked back when I was in India working for a consulting company, Absolute Data, which is now an Indian
Yes.
company. And
Oh
he
yes.
and I,
He's an amazing people leader.
he's an amazing people leader. But I had the good fortune of actually working with him when he was building a product, right, for Absolute Data. And I saw him set up the team, the way he interacted with the people, and the kind of very aggressive, bold timelines they had to meet. I got to get involved with him only towards the last, like a phase of a couple of years when I was there, of my career with that organization, and I had a chance to work with him, and I could see the way he thinks about a problem, how consumer centric he was at the end, customer centric he was when he was making something, and how he managed the entire process. So I really learned that if you're going to build something, right? What are the different facets that are required and what the thinking should be behind making a successful product. So I really loved working with him on that. And the second great experience I had was on the corporate side with one of my managers was Echo Menza. He is now currently with a very awesome company called Beam Suntory. So they make cocktails and whiskey. So he's having
Oh, wow. Okay.
uh, but I really, with him, what I learned was two things. One, um, how can you lead a team, right? A very high functioning team, and yet be good, like make sure that your team understands that they have to deliver something on the business. But at the same time, I felt like he's a manager who understands that people come to work to earn money for the family. So life's back there, right? And I could see he's so high functioning, but he would leave office on time, and he was really good at that. And he was never missed a deadline, never did, like was making sure that he has a lot of very ambitious projects.
That is particularly important to understand for oneself and their teammates that you know
Yeah,
we earn for at the end of the day it's the family that matters, and you know you're in your office, and the brand that occupies you throughout the day uh, should be left when you leave the office, or in the 21st century digital world, close your laptop here.
yeah. And the other thing I said, two things I learned from him. The other thing I learned from Echo was he has a very good, keen sense of looking at analytics projects and understanding how useful and where in the whole journey of the company is it going to be useful to give it either to senior management, and in what portion of the business can they leverage this kind of data analytics initiatives or projects or research or insights. And I think that goes back to the first point of like how can CEOs and organizations leverage it better. There's a lot of pressure, and I talked to you about that relationship, right, between recommending and telling the leader. I think you should look at that. I think he's very good at doing that, and I really liked it. Like you could look at a research project, appreciate it from its complexity and from the coding and insights perspective. Okay, that deliverable looks beautiful, but let's also figure out how does it fit the entire organization and where they can leverage it. So that was great about it. Um, if my current manager reads it, like listens to this session, I just want to let her know I did not mention some of my other current manager for the sole purpose of people will be like, oh, he's sucking up. He's mentioning his
All
current.
right. Yeah.
Like, so I just want to, but to be fair, a long list of people, even colleagues, like I mentioned some of the senior folks because I got to learn a lot, but we also learn, I think we learn more, but in a very unstructured manner from people we work with, right?
Right.
People, even on the other side of the table, if it's a client, it's an internal, say, stakeholder, an internal client you have in the organization, you learn from a lot from them as well.
Yeah, I feel that if you like have a senior in the team who's willing to help you, you learn so much more than even your manager, because that person is in that same rut as you are.
And I love having whiteboard sessions with a lot of my internal colleagues as well. Let's say someone's from another department, it's marketing, who's going to use one of the analytics outputs that we have. I love having whiteboard sessions. Like, tell me what are you looking for? And they would draw, and that's a learning moment for you as well. You see how they are thinking about the problem, or why they're asking you what they're asking you. It helps you learn from their perspective as well, like what's useful, right? How are they going to use it and all, and just from simple like what the um, uh, thinking processes, irrespective of data, teams, analytics. Just like, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at things. That's an interesting way of managing your team.
Right.
That's an interesting way of handling conflict. Like this person is great at that. So there's a lot of learnings that come. You can learn things from comedians as well. And,
You can, yes.
yeah, I was listening to one of these comedians, Zakir Khan. Everybody knows him, like name on the Indian stand-up comic side, and he talked about that once he got into the industry and he was working without before being a comedian, and he said, industry runs, and he used the word mediocrity, which I don't like. I think industry does pretty well. He was a little harsh on it, but he made a very fine statement. He said, industry runs on deadlines. You can't have a creative process with deadlines. And I was like, okay, that's it. It's comedy. He's talking about comedy and offices in his life like that. But it hit me that when you are looking at your projects and what you're doing, most of the time you're chasing deadlines. So what portion of it can you carve out to bring that creative side and say, okay, you know what, this is one project in the entire year we're going to make really beautiful. We were going to focus more on the creative process rather than running and chasing a deadline. So, does it help you do that? So, there's learning everywhere. I think you'll have folks you work with even on the not as part of your team, but you'll really enjoy it. I learned a lot from you from these conversations, and just
Oh, I did so too. This was such an eye opener for me to have like first person insights from someone who has been in this field and is a senior. So I absolutely enjoyed this conversation, and I'm very sure anybody watching this conversation or listening to this conversation will absolutely love it. Thank you so much, Jayant, for being here. Thank you so much for coming to Your Next Move.
thanks so much, Ray. Thanks so much for inviting me. I love this experience, and I hope it serves the purpose that you're intending for. And wishing you all the very best on this initiative. I think this is great. Someone taking the ownership of creating content and just consuming it. All the best to you, and you know, all the good luck your way. May the force be with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ray, and really glad to be here.